Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into a pretty hefty stack of sources. It's all focused on two political tech scandals that broke around the same time. Highly controversial stuff. But the real story, the thing we're trying to get at, is the reaction from the political establishment. Wildly different reactions.
Exactly. Our mission here is to synthesize what these sources are telling us. I mean, do these private texts actually reveal something fundamental about the people sending them?
Yeah, and maybe more importantly, what do the responses, how the Republican and Democratic parties handled these leaks? Tell us about where American politics is right now. What are the standards?
Oh, leaked texts are always fascinating, aren't they? One source really hit on this. People text thinking it's private.
Unguarded.
Totally unguarded. It's like a window into what they really think, or at least what they thought in that moment. It's irresistible, like political catnip.
But that's the trap too, right?
That's the danger. Because it's unguarded, context becomes absolutely critical. You have to figure out, is this just some, ugly, edgy joke, hyperbole, or is it something more, like confirmed, deeply held intent?
And that distinction, that's crucial for how the parties police their own members. So let's start with the first case, the Republican side.
Okay.
This involved a leaked Telegram group chat with some young Republicans.
Right, and the content reported was, well, it was vile. No way around it. We're talking about really extreme, unacceptable language.
Things like referring to African Americans with a horrific slur, suggesting everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber.
And explicitly homophobic language, too.
Yeah.
All in this private chat.
But here's the thing. The reaction from the GOP establishment, it was immediate, swift, unequivocal. Isn't that what you want to see?
Yeah.
A party policing itself.
Well, on the surface, yes. The National Young Republican Board called the language vile and inexcusable. They demanded resignations, like, right away.
Yeah, and Congressman Mike Lawler called the comments disgusting, deeply offensive and hateful. Said the people involved needed to reflect on how far they have strayed from basic human respect. Strong stuff.
Very strong. But the sources we looked at suggest digging a bit deeper. They argue you have to contrast that speed and severity, basically purging these young people over chat room talk, however awful, with the party's general tolerance for other kinds of, let's say, indecent behavior from higher-ups.
What kind of behavior are they pointing to?
Things like politicians taking significant money from the payday loan industry or funds from foreign governments, or figures who openly advocate for what the sources call pointless wars. Lindsey Graham is mentioned as someone who does this and remains in good standing.
Okay. So the critique isn't that the condemnation was wrong, but that it seems selective.
Exactly. The sources frame it as less about core integrity and more about what they call gatekeeping.
Gatekeeping.
Yeah, like policing language mainly when it causes a media storm or risks damaging the party's image externally. The standard seems based on appearance, not necessarily consistent principle or action.
Okay, so that's the Republican calculus, according to these sources, manage the optics, protect the brand from certain kinds of embarrassment.
Precisely. And if that's the standard, then we absolutely have to look at the second scandal, the Democratic one, because the context there involving Jay Jones, who is running for Attorney General in Virginia, well, it's far more serious than just bad taste or edgy jokes online.
Right. This involves a text exchange Jones had, years ago it seems, with another delegate, Kerry Connor. And the target of his anger was Todd Gilbert, the top Republican in the Virginia House.
And the source material is really emphatic here. It says this exchange leaves zero room for interpretation. No guessing about context or intent.
Okay, so what did the texts actually say?
Well, it starts badly and escalates. Jones apparently texted that if his political opponents died before him, he'd go to their funerals to piss on their graves. Yeah. But then it gets much, much darker. He ranked Todd Gilbert alongside Hitler and Pol Pot. Said Gilbert deserved 2 bullets to the head.
2 bullets to the head for a political opponent.
But the really chilling part, according to the sources, is what happened next. Connor, the delegate he was texting, was clearly disturbed. She tried to talk him down, express concern.
And did he back off?
No, that's the critical point. The sources confirm he doubled down. Repeatedly. He confirmed he wanted Gilbert's wife and children, who were just 2 and 5 years old at the time. He wanted them to die, too.
He said he wanted the children dead.
Yes, stating they were breeding little fascists.
Breeding little fascists? Good grief.
That specific phrase is central to the analysis in the source material. They explicitly call it political guilt by blood, tribalism, punishing people, even toddlers, just because of who their parents are. And this wasn't some random person. This was a leading candidate for attorney general advocating for the murder of small children.
The sources then draw this really stark irony, connecting it to how victimhood is used in politics today.
Right. Jones apparently often used narratives of racism and discrimination against him. He pointed to things like the Confederate flag issue, the Ralph Northam blackface scandal, positioning himself as the victim.
But the biographical details in the sources paint a very different story.
Completely different. Jones is described as a child of privilege. Parents were judges, father went to Princeton. Jones attended the most expensive private school in Norfolk, then William and Mary, then UVA Law School. Real elite background.
And the target, Todd Gilbert.
The sources note he went to public school, wasn't from a wealthy family, but he's white.
So he fits the oppressor role in this narrative.
Exactly. It fits what the sources call a very familiar script, where victimhood becomes a source of power, even for someone objectively privileged. And the analysis argues this claimed victimhood was used, in this case, to somehow justify an explicit, repeated call for killing children.
Which brings us back to the core question. How did the Democratic Party respond? Given the GOP's immediate reaction to offensive language, what happened when their candidate advocated actual violence?
Sure. Well, according to the sources, they essentially formed a phalanx around him to protect him.
A phalanx. So, unified defense.
Completely. The reporting indicates that no Democrat, not statewide in Virginia, not nationally, called for Jones to resign or be disqualified.
Nobody.
Nobody. The priority, it seems, was holding on to that attorney general seat, mainly, the sources say, to protect policy goals like abortion rights.
And we saw this play out on the national stage too, didn't we, with Nancy Pelosi?
We did. Pelosi defended Jones. She basically said, look, he apologized, and on balance, he's the better person to be attorney general.
On balance. So the calculation was political power outweighs this.
That's how the sources interpret it, that the party decided keeping the AG position was more important than, basic human revulsion to advocating the murder of kids.
There was also that moment with Congressmember Abigail Spanberger, who was running for governor.
Yes, a very telling moment, according to the analysis. During a debate, she was directly asked about Jones's threats against Gilbert's young children.
And her response?
Silence. She refused to answer, just sat there.
Wow. Even though she's a mother herself.
Right. And the source material frames that silence, that refusal to engage, even on the level of basic human feeling, as the ultimate example of the institution prioritizing political power above all else. Above decency, above condemning calls for violence against children.
So when you put the two responses side by side,
the contrast is just incredibly stark, isn't it? The GOP swiftly shaming its own members over bad taste and offensive language in a chat, while the Democrats circled the wagons to defend a candidate who explicitly advocated for murdering a rival's family, including toddlers.
The conclusion drawn in the material is pretty damning. It suggests the Democratic Party's actions show this commitment to power and numbers above principle, that winning allows them to think they can do whatever we want.
And this defense, instead of condemnation, is interpreted by these sources as reflecting something darker, an unmistakable hunger for violence among some Democratic leaders.
So this asymmetry, Republicans folding over language, Democrats defending violence for political gain, that really forces a bigger conversation about where things are headed.
It does, and that leads into the conservative perspective outlined in some of the sources.
Which argues what?
Essentially, that the political left is becoming more radical, potentially more violent, partly because they see some traditional electoral advantages slipping away, things like potential shifts due to redistricting in conservative states.
Okay, so if that's the premise, what's the proposed response?
The argument shifts away from just reacting to scandals. It says establishment Republicans need to stop worrying so much about policing language just to appease media criticism.
And focus on what instead?
Focus on deeper structural issues that, in their view, enable this perceived radicalism and potential for violence.
You mean like government institutions?
Exactly. The focus lands squarely on what they call the deep state, the FBI, the CIA, the intelligence apparatus. The view presented is that these agencies have become structurally opposed to constitutional limits and are even involved in political subversion.
That's a strong claim. What evidence do they cite?
One specific point emphasized is the confirmation, as they stated, that hundreds of plainclothed FBI agents were present in the crowd during the January 6th events.
Okay.
For these analysts, the fact that there hasn't been significant high-level accountability for this alleged infiltration Very few firings, for instance, points to a serious, deep rot within these institutions, a failure of oversight that they say occurred even under a Republican administration.
So the proposed solution isn't just tweaking things.
No, it's radical reform. They argue for fundamentally restructuring intelligence and law enforcement, not just danicizing the FBI, but maybe bifurcating it, separating counterterrorism and intelligence gathering completely from traditional law enforcement to root out what they see as anti-American sentiment or political bias within the system.
That's presented as a matter of national self-preservation against escalating conflict.
That's the framing, yes. And then bringing it down to the individual level, for the listener, for the average family.
What's the takeaway?
The advice drawn from these sources is basically, don't be paranoid, but be prepared. Focus on practical risk mitigation,
Meaning?
strengthening the family unit, reinforcing the cultural foundations of society, and just generally preparing for the possibility of increased civil unrest, but doing so in a calm, analytical way. Not panic, but preparedness.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it seems the real story wasn't just the awful things said in those texts.
No, not really.
The true deep dive was into the reactions, the standards, the hypocrisies, the cold political calculations of both major parties that were laid bare by how they responded.
Absolutely. And if you connect all that, the final thought that emerges from the material, something really provocative to consider, is this. We have documented failures, according to these sources, of Congress overseeing agencies like the FBI, an institutional rot that persisted even under a Republican White House.
Okay.
So if political violence does continue to escalate, as these analysts predict, what is the fundamental responsibility of Congress, of the executive branch, towards simple self-preservation, preserving the system itself? And why isn't that self-preservation, addressing that institutional failure, the absolute top priority right now?
It's a really profound question, isn't it? Where does the loyalty ultimately lie with the party or with the stability of the system itself? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.